up to Daf. We're today's Amud, catching up for Sunday. We are up to Daf Gimel Amud base in the middle of the Daf. Sunday's Amud is Daf Dalal Amud Aleph. And today we are saying the Amud for the 4th of Nisan. And then we'll have the recording for the 5th of Nisan coming out a little bit later today. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. We left off about a third of the way down of the page on Daf Gimel Amud Beis as we are making our way through Maseches Shekalim. The Mishnah told us with regards to Memashkenim es Haktanim, whether or not you can claim mashkin, you can confiscate property in order to force people to pay their machatzis shekel, their dues to the Beis Hamikdash. And the Mishnah had told us ein memashkenim es haktanim, that we're not allowed to demand mashkin from the ktanim, meaning we don't confiscate their property. But it seems like we do in fact demand payment from them. Says the Gemara, that only means we're talking about a katan that has already brought 2 saras, meaning they have 2 pubic hairs, and you can assume that they have begun going through puberty. That is what is assumed to be a gadol. But if he hasn't yet brought 2 hairs, then he's not included in this halacha. We don't demand that he pays the machatzis shekel. Says the Gemara, ula mashkin ein mamashkin, and then we certainly are not going to extract any payments from him until he has 2 hairs. Which is our correct gear. So even though he has brought 2 saras, we are still not going to demand anything from him until he is 20 years old. Meaning that from the age of 13 until the age of 20, if he has brought 2 saras, then you can demand payment from him, but you cannot confiscate his property yet. Says the Gemara, Kini Mas Nisin. We have a brisa that teaches in accordance with this Mishnah, and we are not going to be mashkin the kahanim mipnei derech hakavod, because we are treating them respectfully. Now, the relation between these 2 things is that while it is true, certainly, that we are going to demand payment from the kahanim certainly have to pay, at least according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, as we will see in a moment, and as we saw in the Mishnah, we are not going to be mamashkin them, we're not going to confiscate their property, and that is derech kavod, which the Mishnah referred to as darkei shalom, meaning the question is there a difference between these 2 dinim in Pnei Darkei Shalom? We have a dinim of Darkei Shalom all throughout Maseches Gittin. Darkei Shalom applies to everybody. Kohanim in particular have a unique din of derech kavod, because the Torah says v'kidashtai, that you have to hold the Kohanim in higher esteem, in higher regard. And then our brisa is indicating that the reason that we don't go demand payment from the Kohanim by knocking down the door and confiscating the property is because of a din of v'kidashtai, though they are still obligated to pay. Says the Gemara, quoting from the Mishnah, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda said that Ben Bukhari had testified that the Kohanim were not obligated in bringing their machatzis shekel. Amar Rebrechia says, Rebrechia, time of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the reason Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who says that they are obligated to bring the machatzis shekel, ze yitnu, this they will bring, meaning this they're going to bring. The Torah says this, and zeh, the word zeh contains within it the gematria 7 and 5, which is 12. Yud beis shvatim yitnu, all 12 tribes have to bring the machatzis shekel. That's how the Korban Eidah explains that the zeh is zeh b'gematria shneim asar v'kahanim and levim bichlal. It means that it includes the kahanim and levim. Now, our Mishnah has only spoken about the din of kahanim, but it would seem to be that according to Rav Bukhari's opinion, that that the Kohanim don't have to bring the machatzis shekel, then Levim would also not have to bring the machatzis shekel. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is disagreeing and saying no, they do, as indicated by the remez in the word zeh. Says the Gemara, questioning as follows: Rabbi Tami b'shem Rav Hamnuna asks the following question: Kain Meshivin Chachamim le Rabbi Yehuda. This is how the Chachamim who agree with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai they would fight with Ben Bukhri. Chatas Yachid Mesa. If you have a situation of a chatas of an individual that dies, ein chatas Yachid Mesa, you can have a din of a private chatas that is left to die, and that was what we had seen in Maseches Psachim, that there are 5 times that a chatas a yachid is left to die, meaning it's roya ad. It's not a roya ad she'istad. It is not. It is left to die, meaning. The same way that we have a distinction, differentiation, that's how the Kabbalah explains, between a chatas yachid and a chatas tzibur, that a chatas yachid, a chatas of an individual, sometimes, halacha the halacha is that chatas yachid is left to die, and there is no time that a chatas tzibur is left to die. There is no such thing. Minchas yachid kreva kalel, ve'in minchas tzibur kreva kalel. The mincha of a yachid is brought burnt up entirely on the mizbeach. Ve'in minchas tzibur kreva kalel, and the mincha of a tzibur is should also be differentiated in that it is never brought kalel. It's never burnt up entirely on the mizbeach. Meaning that Ben Bukhri, you said that the Kohanim are not obligated in bringing the Maseches HaShekel, and the Kohanim had made this drasha that how could we eat from it if we're contributing to it? It would have to be burnt up completely on the Mizbeach. So the Chachamim said back to Ben Bukhri, but certainly there is a difference. The same way there's a difference between the Chatzos, the Chatzos, there would be a difference between the menachos in that it is never going to be brought kalal. It never has to be burnt up entirely on the Mizbeach. So the argument is null and void. But before the Gemara responds to this, so says the Gemara V'Kasha, and there's a challenge within this question. Because how can we attack Ben Bukhri based on something that he doesn't agree to? Did not ein chatas tzibur meisa Rabbi Yehuda Omer Thomas. The Chacham said to Ben Bukhri that chatas tzibur is not meisa. It was never going to die, but and therefore we should learn from that about the chatas, the menachos of the tzibur, that it is differentiated from the menachos of the yachid. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, the chatas of the tzibur do die. Yeah, meaning when Rabbi Yehuda quotes the opinion of Ben Bukhri, the argument of the Chachamim doesn't make any sense there. So says the Gemara, "Who ma'isivlan?" But Rabbi Yehuda explained, according to even within his own shita, Zu loy nidvas yachid. When the Kohanim give a donation to the Beis Hamikdash, that's not called a nidvas yachid. It's not called a private donation. Ve'inun misiven lei, and the Chachamim then replied to Rabbi Yehuda, Kevin shenimtzur letzibur k'mi shehu nidvas tzibur. Once it is given over to the tzibur, it is if it is a nidvas tzibur, meaning it is considered to be part of the communal sacrifice, the communal offering, and therefore it is not considered to be a yachid at all. So the conversation doesn't really even need to get off the ground. Says the Gemara. So where are the rayas for Ben Bukhri and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai? Says the pasuk, Ksiv kala over ala pikudim. Anybody that passes through the census is going to give the Maseches HaShekel b'Shekel HaKodesh. Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbi Nechemia Chad Amar Kol Da'avar B'Yama Yiten. Everybody who passed through the Red Sea has to give a Maseches HaShekel. V'Charna Amar, and Charna, the meaning the Acherim, that's the V'Charna, is the Acher Amar Kol Da'avar Al Pikudaya Yiten. Anybody that has to give the census has to give the Maseches HaShekel in future generations. Manda Amar Kol Da'avar B'Yama Yiten. Anybody that says the one that says anybody that passed through Yamsuf should give the Maseches a shekel. That supports the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan Zake. Anybody had to give at the original census, that fits with the opinion of Ben Bukhri. But that would also mean that it excludes the entirety of Shevet Levi. And that would be the machlokes here. That does the Maseches shekel get given by every Jew that passed through Yamsuf, or does it is it given by every Jew that had to give at the first counting in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu in the Mishkan? And that machlokes is this machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Ben Bukhri. Okay, either which way, if a kohen did give the Maseches shekel, the karbanos would still be able to be brought from that, and if there would be a minchas tzibur, that minchas tzibur would be allowed to be eaten, because, as we've noted a couple of lines up, that even though it would be from the karbanos of the even though it would include the money of the Kohanim, it's still called a minchas tzibur. It's not called a minchas yachid. And nevertheless, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's argument that the Kohanim made an inappropriate drasha is true. That is not the raya for it. It is from Kol Haver Al Pikudim that the Kohanim and the Leviim did not have to give in the original census of the counting of the Mishkan. Okay, bottom of Gimel Amud Beis, the Gemara now quotes the next halacha Daled Ma'is Nisin. Says the Mishnah as follows. We are coming back to our discussion about Nashim Avadim and Ketanim with regards to whether or not they have to give Maseches shekel. Says the Mishnah, Afal Pisha Amra Ein Memashkenim Nashim Va'avadim Ketanim, even though we don't seize their property in order to force them to pay Maseches shekel. Aval Im Shaklu, if they did want to give Mekablim Miyadon, we do accept it from them, meaning they are allowed to volunteer Maseches shekel. Says the Gemara, Hanachri Va'akusi Sheshaklu, a Nachri, a non-Jew, Va'akusi and a Kusi, who different periods of time was considered Jewish and not considered Jewish. In this case, is not considered Jewish. The Nachri and the Kusi Sheshaklu, that they decided to give the Maseches shekel, Ein Mekablim him, we do not accept it from them. Ve'ein Mekablim miyadam kani zavas v'kani yoldas. We also don't accept from the Nachri and from the Kusi any karbanos, the birds that Zav would bring, and the birds that a Zava would bring, and the birds that a Yoledes would bring. Though all of those karbanos Yachid, we do not accept from non-Jews. The Chatas v'Hashamas, we also don't accept the Chatas and an Asham. Those they are not allowed to bring. Zakla, this is the rule with regards to non-Jews bringing karbanos. Kol shenidav v'nidev mekablim miyadam. Anything that is voluntary, meaning a donation to the Mizbech. They want to bring a karban to the Mizbech, vows or donations. That means an ola or a shlamim, they're allowed to bring to the Beis HaMikdash. They can say, I want to give this to the Beis HaMikdash. That they can bring. Mekablim miyadim, we accept it from them. Kol she'ein nidav v'nidev, anything that is not vowed or donated, but is as we'll see in a moment, is used for berek habayis, meaning for the Beis HaMikdash, meaning for upkeep of the Beis HaMikdash, ein mekablim miyadim, that we do not accept from them. Meaning, there are two categories that we are taking, that we are explaining here. Anything that is a karban, you can take from them, so long as it's not the kind of karban that a Jew would be obligated to bring. So, a donation. You can bring a karban as a donation, give that to the Mizbech, good. But berek habayis, upkeep of the Beis HaMikdash, that we do not allow them to bring. We don't accept money from them. Says the Gemara, B'chein mefurish al yidei Ezra, and this was explicitly stated by Ezra. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Lo lachem velanu livnais beis Elokeinu. It is Lo lachem, it's not for you. Velanu livnais beis Elokeinu, but it's up to us to build the house of Hashem. The Kusim wanted to take part in the building of the second Beis HaMikdash. Ezra said, no, you don't get to donate to the building of the Beis HaMikdash. Only Jews get to donate to the building of the Beis HaMikdash. Now, this becomes an interesting conversation, as we will see on the top of Daf Daled, exactly what the gather of this is. So hold up that for a moment on that. Top of Daf Daled Amud Aleph. Says the Gemara, We're going to come back to non-Jews making donations, but in the meantime, we are going to discuss the halacha of kalban. Kalban literally means kal bain. It is a small amount that is in between. Now, general introduction to the idea of a kalban is everybody has to give a machatzis shekel. Good. So you want to give your half shekel coin, but you only have a full shekel coin. That's all that you have available. So you would need to go to the money exchanger in order to get your half shekel coin. But when you gave the half shekel coin, when you gave him your full shekel, and he gave you 2 half shekels, you also have to pay a small fee to the money exchanger commission, which means that the value of the whole coin that you give, when you want to exchange it, is a little less than 2 half shekels put together. And therefore, in order to get your half shekel coin, you are going to have to pay a little bit. And that little bit is called a kolban. That's called a extra little bit. The extra little bit to make sure that what you are actually giving the Beis HaMikdash is the value of a machatzis shekel. Because again, if you gave a machatzis shekel by itself, straight of machatzis shekel, good. But, and we'll see differentiations in a moment, but if you gave something other than the machatzis shekel itself, you might have to be obligated in a kolban, and we will see what this is. Who has to pay this a little bit extra? All these people, a Levi and a Yisrael and a Ger and a Avadim that are freed. We accept the half shekel from them, but they don't have to pay the little extra tax. We don't obligate them to do this. And the Tikkun Chatin is explaining that the reason for this is because these people are volunteering to give; they are not obligated to give. And this would seem to be the opinion of Ben Bukhari, quasi opinion of Ben Bukhari, with regards to Kohanim, that we don't meaning a Kohen is obligated to give, but we're not mechayev them in the tax. In the tax of we're patering them from the tax as a quasi opinion of Ben Bukhari, that they're not obligated to give the kolban, but the Nashim and Avadim Magdalim are certainly not obligated. They're not obligated in machatzis shekel. A shekel al yidei kohen, and the Mishnah says if you gave al yidei kohen, meaning you gave a machatzis shekel on behalf of a kohen, al yidei isha, al yidei avin. A regular Jew decided that he wanted to give a machatzis shekel for the kohen, for his wife, for his slave, for his katan. Pater. In all of those cases, you'd be pater because you are donating extra. That was you're not obligated to give for somebody that is obligated to give. But if you gave 1 shekel, you gave a 1 shekel coin that you say I'm covering my body as well. So I gave 1 shekel, but I'm included in that, me and my friend, chayiv b'kolban. That's where you would be chayiv b'kolban echad. You'd be chayiv in 1 kolban because in order to exchange it, you would have to pay a small fee to the money exchanger, and therefore you are saving money by giving a full shekel to the Beis HaMikdash. Reb Meir says no, not 1, but 2 kolbanos. You have to give 2 because each one of you is chayiv in a kolban, and therefore you have to give 2 kolbanos. Hanoisin sela vanoitel shekel chayiv. If you gave a sela for yourself, vanoitel shekel, and takes a shekel as change, chayiv shtei kolbanos, you'd be chayiv 2 kolbanos. Now that is because the shekel that the Mishnah is talking about, the shekel of the Mishnah is the equivalent of a machatzis shekel of the Torah, and a sela is and a sela which is worth 2 shekalim of the Mishnah would give a shekel is now 4 machatzis shekels. So if you gave a sela and you took a shekel, you'd be chayiv in shtei kolbanos because you have made 2 money exchanges for the value of your 1 sela. Okay, hashekel al yidei ani. If you gave a machatzis shekel for an ani, ve'al yad shchena, ve'al yad ben iroi, potter, ve'im hilvun chayiv. So if you gave a machatzis shekel for an ani, or al yidei shchena, or for your neighbor, Va'al yidei ben ira, or for somebody else in your town, pater, you are going to be pater from the kolbon, because at this point in time, this was a gift and it is not a loan. However, v'im hilbon, but if you lent it to them, chayiv, then you are chayiv. Meaning, as opposed to your friend who you are saying, I got you covered, right? So I'll give a shekel, and then he'll pay me back a half shekel later. So in that situation, you'd be chayiv a kolban or two kolbanos according to Reb Meir. And if it would be that you are doing it as a gift, you're saying, I got him, I'm covering this entirely, then nobody would have to pay you back, and there would be no further exchange of any shkalim, and therefore you'd be pater from the kolban. But if it was a loan, then you would be chayiv. And then the Mishnah says, ha'achim ha'shutfin, you have two brothers that are partners, meaning they have they together own their father's estate. Shechayavim bekolban, they are chayiv in kolban if they pay together, and peturim mima'aser behema, but they are exempt from ma'aser behema. Ukshechayavim b'ma'aser behema, and when they are obligated to take ma'aser behema, peturim min kolban, they be pater in those cases from the kolban. That we will see a little bit later. V'kame hu kolban, and how much exactly is a kolban? What is that amount of money? It's ma'a kesef. It is a ma'a of silver, and that is the opinion of Reb Meir. V'cham and the chacham say chatzi ma'a. It is half of a ma'a. Now, a ma'a is a sixth of a dinar, and a dinar is 1/2 of a shekel, and a shekel is a half of a selah. So comes out that a ma'a is a 12th of a shekel and a 24th of a selah. So according to Reb Meir, it says that a ma'a, who says that the kolban is a ma'a, not me'ah, but ma'a, the kolban is going to be a 12th of a shekel, and according to the Chacham, it's going to be a 24th of a shekel. And that is talking about mishnayik shkalim, not the shekel of the times of the Chumash. Okay. Says the Gemara as follows. Afal pi she'amru, even though, continuing with the Gemara, Afal pi she'amru, even though they said, with regards to the Ketanim, halidvaya ein tovim, we don't demand it from them. If Ketanim want to give to the Beis HaMikdash, they can, but we don't demand it from them. So hacha at amar tovim, v'hacha at amar ein tovim. So here, in the previous Mishnah, you said that we do demand it from them, and here you said that we don't demand it from them. So which one is it? Says the Gemara, no. Let's clarify. It depends whether or not they've hit puberty or not. If they've hit puberty, then you do demand it from them, but you don't claim their property. And before they've hit puberty, you don't take their you don't demand it from them at all. Okay. Back to the question of a nachri and a kusi that want to give a donation to the Beis HaMikdash. A nachri and a kusi, with regards to a nachri, a non-Jew, and a kusi, and this questionable Jew in the days of the Mishnayos. Amar Rabbi Ba, says Rabbi Ba or Rabbi Abba, Tipata Commander Amar Kusi Kenachri. We should explain that this goes according to the opinion that says that a kusi is like a nachri, clearly, right? That this is our Mishnah is holding that a kusi is like a nachri. This palgina, because there is a machlokes about this. Kusi kenachri divrei Rebbe. Rebbe was the one that says that a kusi is like a nachri, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says kusi is supposed to be treated like a Jew for all matters. In which case, they would be able to make a donation to the Beis HaMikdash. That would be for Bedek Habayis, which we're going to see in a moment. Amar Rabbi Lezer, says Rabbi Elazar, Masnisan be Nachrim. Our Mishnah is talking about Nachrim, but it is not talking about Kusim. Meaning, this Mishnah or this Bryce that we're about to say is talking about Nachrim, not Kusim. And we will see it as follows: Vitani, and we taught in a Brisa, Vitani Kain, Adam l'Rabbi says Agir. That when the pasuk says Adam ki yakir mikem, a person that comes to give a korban to the Beis HaMikdash, this is a good Amud Yomi coincidence for Parshas Vayikra, which we just learned last week. Adam ki yakir, if a person wants to bring a korban, Adam in l'Rabbi says Sagerim includes converts. Mikem, from you lahotzias amumrim, excludes those that are mumrim, excludes a person that that has abandoned Yiddishkeit, that is not observant, and you see that therefore it would include a kusi, because they bring a lot of sacrifices. They're allowed to bring. They are allowed to bring many korbanos, and therefore Adam ki yakrib mikem includes a kusi, but it excludes a mumar, and that is part of the machlokes Tana. Says the Gemara. Rebbe Eliezer then continues, Masnisin, Pligi al Rebbe Eliezer. Our Mishnah disagrees with the opinion of Rebbe Eliezer. Ein mekabel miyadim kani zavim zavos kani yoldos. We don't accept karbanos from them. That is the karbanos of a zav or a zava or a yoledes. V'chein yesh kani zavim zavos benachrim. And the Gemara then questions, V'chi yesh kani zavim zavos benachrim. Would there even be a discussion with regards to taking the karbanos of a zav and a zava and a yoledis by a nachri? Those don't even exist. So it must be that our Mishnah is talking about kusim, because they might think that they're chayiv, but a non-Jew would never have even thought. There's no idea of a zav and a zava with regards to, well, the yoledis does exist by a non-Jew. Non-Jews do have babies, but they don't have dinim of zav and zava. So what would that even be? So ela reisha b'nachrim v'sev b'kusim. Rather, you have to say that. So the question: the elaration of Nachrim. You can say the beginning of the Mishnah is talking about Nachrim. That Nachrim are not bring the Nachrim. We don't take Maseches shekel from them, but kusim we do. That would be a fascinating distinction within the Mishnah. Says the Gemara. We answer as follows: Kainhu. Yeah, that's exactly it. Reisha b'nachrim, the beginning of the Mishnah that says we don't take Maseches shekel. We don't take Maseches shekel is only talking about nachrim. V'sefer b'kusim, and the end of the Mishnah is talking about kusim, that we don't take their optional. We don't take their optional. Well, we don't take their korbanos, but we would take Maseches shekel from them. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan as follows: B'tchila, at the beginning, and we're going to go according to the approach of the Tikkun Chatin and the Korban Eidah. There's a long discussion. The Rambam has a different read on this whole Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan says B'tchila, at the beginning. What's the beginning? The beginning of the building of the Beis Hamikdash, what Ezra was speaking about in the Mishnah. Ein mekabel mehem, we don't accept any donations from them. Loi davar mesuyim v'loi davar she'en mesuyim. Not a definite item. Meaning building materials, and not a fungible item, meaning money to be able to use for something. And once the Beis Hamikdash was built, we accept from them something that is not definite, meaning a fungible item, money. But we still don't accept this mirror for the kier is donated by John Smith. We don't accept davar masuyim. Rabbi Shimon Lakish tells us, both at the beginning and at the end, we don't accept anything from them ever. We don't accept anything ever. Not a definite item, and not money that is going to be fungible to be used for something else. Says the Gemara, Masnisim pligi al Rabbi Yochanan. The Mishnah challenges Rabbi Yochanan. Ein mekabel mehem hektish v'nadava lebedek habayis. The Mishnah says that we don't accept hektish unadava lebedek habayis. Hektish, donations and things that are consecrated. Lebedek habayis, for the bedek habayis, for the upkeep of the Beis Hamikdash. Patola, and meaning we don't accept from them ever. And Rabbi Yochanan said that we do accept from them fungible items later on. That we would be, we would be able to accept a definite item, but not fungible items later on. So Patola bein b'tchila bein b'soif, and the Gemara is going to give two answers to this. Patola, you could say that. That we are talking about both the beginning stages and the end stages, meaning both the beginning of the building and the end of the building. but only with regards to a davar masuyim, a distinctive item that Rabbi Yochanan says that's never going to be accepted. And pater la b'masuyim, alternatively, and this is in the parentheses here, pater la b'masuyim, or you could say that it's talking about a definite item, shafilu ma'asav yalichin liyam hamelach, that we're only talking about the beginning stages. That if a non-Jew came and brought money to build the Beis Hamikdash, the second Beis Hamikdash, they would have discarded their money, they would have thrown it into the Dead Sea. They don't use it at all. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, "Bein b'tchila bein b'seif ein mekabel mehem lo davar masuyim." We don't accept anything from them. Not a distinctive item and not a non-distinctive item at any stage. Says the Gemara now, questioning Reish Lakish's opinion. We have a Mishnah that disagrees with Reish Lakish. The Tani, the Mishnah says, "Hakol shavin shem nodrin ve'nidrin." Everybody is equal. Everything is. Everybody agrees that they can bring nodrim ve'nidrim, that they are allowed to bring a donation v'nidrim. And they can be the subject of a vow, meaning that a person can make a neder to give value of a nachri, meaning on behalf of a nachri. Patala ola, you could explain this with regards to an ola, that they can always bring an ola. Everybody agrees that they bring an ola. So we say nicha nodrim ola. So that makes sense if you're talking about nodrim, that they are allowed to bring an ola. So yeah, a non-Jew is always allowed to bring an ola to the Beis Hamikdash. Nidrin ola, like, but how could you say that that a person can make a vow that a nachri is going to bring an ola? Nidrin ola. So what does it mean that a vow is made about them, that they can bring an ola? So how does that make any sense? Ella, She'am Yisrael, what is the case? She'am Yisrael, a Jew says, Harei alai ola, I am obligating myself in an ola. The Jew says, Ushmat nachri, and a non-Jew hears this, va'amar, and says, Masha amar ze'alai. I agree. That's nidrin, that a vow is taken about him, not that a Jew takes a vow about a non-Jew, but he says, I agree. That's the case. I will bring that as well. That is, everybody agrees that he is allowed to bring such an ola. That is, according to Reish Lakish, the only thing that a non-Jew is allowed to bring to the Beis Hamikdash is an ola. Says the Gemara, whoa, hold on a second. Maybe nisachim, and the non-Jew that brings the olah to the Beis Hamikdash, he doesn't bring wine, he doesn't bring libation offering, and the halacha is moiter nisachin lo lekli sharis, and anything that is left over from the nisachim, what do you do with it? You use it for kli sharis. You use the value of that for a kli sharis to purchase new kalim for the Beis Hamikdash, for new vessels to be collecting the blood, and the pans for the mizbech. So it comes out that his donation is going to be used for a permanent piece of furniture and material in the Beis Hamikdash. That's a davar masuyim. Says the Gemara, nah, hitiv Rabbi Yosi bar Rabbi Bun, says Rabbi Yosi, the son of Rabbi Bun, Rabbi Abun, ha taninon, we have learnt in the Mishnah in Erchin, the nerachin ve'orchin. We have learnt in the Mishnah ne'erachin that non-Jews can bring erchin vows. They can say, "I'm giving my value." Ve'orchin, and they can. A non-Jew can have their value given to the Beis Hamikdash. Ve'orchin, and they can promise their value to the Beis Hamikdash. Lo'ile b'edek habayis, but not for the upkeep of the Beis Hamikdash. So rather, what you have to say there is that they say, "I'm giving this l'shamayim. I'm giving this to God. I'm giving it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whom is Kavin. And then the Kohanim decide how it's going to be used for Beit HaKabayis. Kain at Amar. So too, you'll say Avhacha this case as well l'shamayim whom is Kavin." That is here, he's bringing his nesachim, and he says, "I'm giving it to the Beis Hamikdash. I'm giving this to HaKadosh Baruch Hu." Ume elehem, and then by themselves, hein bain lebedek habayis, they'll be used for bedek habayis, which means that they could be used for a kli sharis. And Be'ez Hashem, we will continue a little bit later today with Daf Daled Amud Beis, which is today's Amud. Be'ezras Hashem, looking forward to seeing everybody later, and hope everybody is having a beautiful day.